Okay, so some quick housekeeping items. So let's see. Our goal today, we're going to go ahead and start by talking about the homework that I passed out yesterday, solving absolute value equations. You have a quiz over that tomorrow. Okay, just a straight quiz, just solving absolute value equations. If you feel comfortable with the homework and the notes, should be a good grade going into the 3-day weekend. And progress reports are next week. Okay, so if you have any questions, remember tomorrow morning is the last opportunity to come in if you're having any difficulty. Next week, I want to make sure I remind you about this. Next Thursday, the 4th, we're going to be taking our first exam of the 9 weeks. It's going to cover the review material as well as absolute value equations and what we're going to start today, absolute value inequalities. Okay. And then the pep rally is coming up. That's going to affect 8th period. And I already talked about the contracts and the website. So are there any questions? All right. Well, what do you say we go ahead and get to it? Okay. Okay, so here we go. Remember, all the homework assignments that I pass out, there's going to be the key posted. Okay, so the idea is that, if you're not able to come in for tutoring or maybe, whatever the case is, you can still look online, check your progress, see if you're getting them right. If not, maybe come talk to me in class and see what we can do. Okay, but what would we like to talk about for absolute value equations? This is what your quiz will be tomorrow. Number 4, let's take a look. Okay, so we've got the absolute value of y plus 9 divided by 4 equals 5. Now, the thing about an absolute value equation, you're going to create 2 equations, right? Okay, but you can't do that until the absolute value is isolated. Well, is there anything outside those bars that I need to take care of? Nope. So this one's perfect. I can immediately go to my 2 equations, regardless of the fact that I have a fraction inside. So my first one is going to be y plus 9 divided by 4 is equal to 5. Bless you. Okay. Remember, you can only do this once the absolute value is by itself. Okay, Tyler, let's go ahead and shut that Chromebook. Okay. Now, what changes for the second equation? There you go. The only thing that changes is your constant is going to switch signs. So this is going to be y plus 9 divided by 4 is equal to negative 5. And then all you got to do is solve the equations. Okay. Now the first thing I would do is what? I'd multiply by 4, get rid of that fraction. Okay. So multiply by 4. I'm going to go ahead and do the exact same thing over on this one. So see, these 4's are going to cancel. I'm only left with that numerator, y plus 9. But don't forget, we have to multiply across the entire equation. So y plus 9 should equal 20. And what's 20 minus 9? 11. So there we go. So there's my first possible solution. Why do I call it a possible solution? You want to check it, okay? Take a few seconds, check it, make sure that you are correct. Now, we'll take care of that in a second. Let's do the same thing over here. So once again, the 4's cancel, but this time the y plus 9 is going to equal negative 20. Okay, so this time, what's a negative 20 minus 9? Negative 29. Okay. So which one would you like to check? We'll start with 11. So I'm going to go ahead and replace the variable with our solution. So the absolute value of 11 plus 9 divided by 4. Okay. Well, that's going to give me the absolute value. 11 plus 9 is 20 divided by 4. What's 20 divided by 4? 5. And what's the absolute value of 5? It is 5. So that checks out. See, it only takes a few seconds. We did one yesterday that, actually, you know what? I think that was 8th period I'm thinking about. We did one yesterday that took a little longer only because the answer was fractional. Okay, we just had to do a little more operations. And I'll go ahead and tell you that negative 29, that also works. Okay. So I'm going to write my answers as a roster. So I'm going to say negative 29, comma 11. Okay, remember, if you write the order differently, is that a problem? No, not a problem at all. Okay. Now, what do we call it if one of those hadn't worked? What is that big E word? Extraneous. That means false solution. So we got an answer, it just didn't work. Okay. All right, what else? This is what your quiz is going to be tomorrow. Maybe we go ahead and look at one like, let's try, what's the first one like this? Okay, how about this one? Let's try number 13. We got the absolute value of 4x minus 1 equals 2x plus 13. What's different about this one? Yeah, we got a variable inside and outside the bars, okay? It doesn't change anything. First off, are the bars isolated? Yep, there is nothing outside them to change. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and create my first equation. What would that be? 4x minus 1? What does that equal? 2x plus 13. The first equation, all you do is drop the bars. Okay. Now for the second equation, you're still going to drop the bars, but what's the change that's coming? There you go. Normally, this equals some number. Well, we would take the opposite of that number. Even though we have a binomial, I'm still going to take the opposite of each term. So I'm going to say the 4x minus 1 equals, the opposite of positive 2x is negative 2x, and a positive 13, the opposite is a negative. And then we just solve the equations like normal. Okay. What would you like me to move in the first one? Bless you, 4x or 2x? Let's move the 2x. So I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. Opposites cancel. 4x minus 2x is 2x. Now, at the same time, if you want to go ahead and keep it, one step at a time, you're more than welcome to. I'm going to go ahead and combine the constants as well. So if I add 1 to both sides, what should 2x equal? 14. And how do I solve for x? Divide by 2. There you go. So my first possible answer, I got 7. And now I just do the same thing for the other one. Okay, what term do you want me to move first? Okay, the negative 2x. This time I'm going to what? I'm going to add it. So plus 2x. Plus 2x. Okay. Opposites cancel. How many x's do I have this time? 6x. Okay, now I'm still going to add the 1. But this time, what's a negative 13 plus 1? So I'm going to say negative 12. And then we divide through by 6. So another possible answer is negative 2. And again, I'll go ahead and show you a check on this one just because we have an x on the opposite. Okay. Which one would you like, 7 or negative 2? Okay, I heard 7. Okay. So let me go ahead and write these over here. So I got a 7 and a negative 2. Let's go ahead. Let's try the 7. So I've got the absolute value. So if I plug a 7 in here, 4 times 7. So we got 28 minus 1 equals, if I plug 7 in here, 2 times 7 is 14 plus 13. Okay. Well, let's see here. 28 minus 1, that is a 27. Will the absolute value of 27 give me 27? Yes, so 7 works. Okay. And again, I'll go ahead and tell you negative 2 works as well. So I'm going to go ahead and say negative 2, comma 7. Got my roster. I'm on to the next problem. Yeah. All right, so this is what your quiz is tomorrow. Any questions? Okay. Is there anything else we want to do? Okay. Correct. Have to be when he gets back. Okay. What number, man? 15. Let's look at 15. Okay. All right. Now in 15, z minus 10 equals the absolute value of 7z minus 16. Okay. Now here, I'm not ready to create my two equations. That absolute value is not by itself. Okay. What's preventing me from moving forward? Okay, so let's get rid of that. So I'm going to go ahead and say plus 16. Plus 16. So I have z, negative 10 plus 16. What am I looking at? Plus 6 is equal to the absolute value of 7z. Now I'm ready to create my two equations. Okay. The absolute value is all by itself. So what's the first equation look like? Okay, z plus 6. And what would that equal? 7z. Remember, the first equation, just lose the bars. Okay. The bars are gone. Now, for the second equation, you are losing the bars, so I've still got 7z. What happens on the other side, though? We take the opposite. We change the sign of everything. So this positive z is now a negative z. Plus 6 is now minus 6. Okay. And then now we solve it. Okay. Let's see what we got here. If I subtract z, okay, so it looks like 6 is equal to 6z. So what's my first answer? 1. And then let's take care of the other one. If I go ahead and this time I'm going to have to add the z. Okay, opposites cancel. Negative 6 equals, how many z's do I have now? Oh, okay, so you're getting ahead of me. Sure, you're right. So that is going to be 8z. Now when I divide through, negative 6/8, z is going to equal a negative 3/4. Okay. Now, I'll go ahead and tell you again, for the sake of time, both of these do work. Okay. There you go. So I'm just going to go ahead and set up my answer. Negative 3/4, comma 1. There you go. Remember, it's always a good idea. Take a few seconds, check your answers. Okay. See if they work. If they work, you're guaranteed you got it right. Okay. If something comes up, we'll mark it out. All right. How are we doing? Man, is that good? Okay. Was there anything else? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do this then. Okay. You can go ahead and hang on to these. A lot of times we have the quiz tomorrow. People like to hang on to them as kind of a study guide. So you're more than welcome to go ahead and do that. Okay. If you're ready, though, to turn it in, make sure your name is on the top of that. Pass it to the front. Is there anybody turning that in? I got one. Okay. I'll take it. Appreciate it, Carlos. Who else? Okay. All right. 7th period. Okay. All right, so why don't we go ahead, let's put this one to the side, and let's take a look at this other set of notes. Okay, now this isn't on your notes, this is just kind of talking about what's about to happen. Okay. You remember back in that first week, going into the second week, where we were doing linear equations and inequalities? Okay, we spent a couple of days talking about the union and the intersection. Does that sound familiar? Okay. Well, these ideas are going to be coming back. We're now going to be solving absolute value inequalities. Okay. So if you're solving an inequality that contains absolute value, it's just like what we were doing a moment ago. You want to isolate whatever's inside the bars. Okay. Once you get down to that, if the bars are all by themselves, if it's less than or equal to, that's an intersection. Okay. If the absolute value is greater than or equal to, you're going to go ahead and use what's called the union. Now, this is how you're going to set up your two inequalities. Just like we set up two inequations, you're going to go ahead and set up two inequalities. We're going to use what's known as the KISS method. Okay, but I'm not going to go ahead and tell you that until we go ahead and get to an actual problem. So let's see what we have here. Okay. So let's look at case one. We have the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 7. Okay. Well, there's nothing outside those bars, and it's greater than. So is this going to be a union or an intersection? You got a 50-50 shot. It's a union. There we go. Okay. Ooh, look at Carlos Cook. Okay. There we go. All right. It's a union. Now take a look at case number 2. If the absolute value is less than, what do you think this is? That's an intersection. Here we go. Intersection. There we go. That is exactly right. Now, here's how we're going to go ahead and do this. I'm going to go ahead, in order to help you with these, I'm going to go ahead and tell you what this acronym stands for. So just like before, we're going to isolate the absolute value expression. Now we're going to create two cases using the KISS method. So we're going to keep it, switch, K-I-S-S. Okay, that's how we're going to go ahead and solve an absolute value inequality. I'll show you what that means in just a moment. Okay, then we solve the inequalities, we graph my solutions, and we write the answers in interval notation. Okay, so let's take a look. Coming on back up here. So you see how it says the absolute value of x is greater than or equal to 7? The first part of KISS, where it says keep it, all you got to do is drop the bars. Okay, so if I drop the bars, I'm just going to keep it as is. So x is greater than or equal to 7. Now remember, what was the word associated with union? Was it the or the and? It was or. So it's this inequality or, so we keep it, and now we're going to switch. So what we're talking about here, we go ahead and highlight this, we're going to switch the symbol, and we're going to switch the sign of my number. Okay, so x greater than or equal to 7, this is now going to be x less than or equal to -7. Okay, that's what KISS stands for. Keep it, switch. Does everybody see exactly what I did? Okay. Well, there's nothing to solve here. I want to show x is greater than or equal to 7. So here's 7. Why would that have a closed circle? Yeah, because we have equality. We got that bar. So I'm going to shade this to the right. And then -7. I'm going to go ahead and put a closed circle on that. I want everything smaller than it. And now I want to go ahead and write this as an interval notation. Okay. Right, Tyler? Right. Okay. So for this first one right here, would everybody agree the interval notation would be -infinity to -7 bracket? Why not use a bracket? The -7 is included, yeah. If it wasn't included, I'd have used the what? Parentheses. Okay. Now, someone give me the interval notation for this one right here. Bracket or parentheses? Bracket, 7, comma, infinity. Now, what do we do if we have more than one interval in my answer? How do I join them? Remember, we put the U between them, the union. So you see how my answer, boom, boom, looks just like my graph. Yeah, sure. Okay. All right. He came back. He didn't say anything. You got to pay attention. Okay. All right. Now let's go ahead and take a look at case number 2. This is the intersection. Okay. So the absolute value of x is less than or equal to 4. Keep it. So the first thing, all I'm going to do is drop the bars. So x is now less than or equal to 4. And here are the 2 items that I'm going to switch. Okay. Switch, switch. So less than or equal to, that's now going to be x what? Greater than or equal to, how does the 4 change? It's negative 4. There you go. Now remember, and for the intersection, these are going to be graphs that are going in opposite directions, but there's going to be an overlap. Okay? You're looking for what they share. So this is probably the one where you want to go ahead and sketch off the line and then put your final answer above. Like for example, we want everything smaller than positive 4. So I would put a closed circle there and I would shade it to the left. And then we want at negative 4, we want a closed circle, but we want everything greater than that. So remember, for the intersection, it's only what the 2 share. So this should run from negative 4 to what? 4. What would the interval notation for that look like? Aviana, can you help me out? You can't. Okay, well, let's start here. Closed circle, parentheses or bracket. 50-50 shot. Parentheses, you're very close. Bracket. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and put bracket. Where does it start? Negative 4, comma. How far does it go? To 4. And because it has a closed circle, parentheses or bracket. Bracket. There you go. Now remember, it's also acceptable to go ahead and write it like this. You could say negative 4 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 4. Okay? See, all of these are providing me the same information, just in different ways. Okay. But that's it. That's how we solve an absolute value inequality. Any questions? Okay. What's KISS stand for? Keep it, switch, switch. Okay. Besides being an amazing rock band. Okay. Now we're not too young. We know who KISS is, right? Okay. Just want to make sure. Because I'm not that old. All right. So let's go ahead and do a couple of these. Okay. So number 1, it says the absolute value of x plus 6 is greater than 7. Okay. William, is there anything I got to get rid of outside the bars? Nope. Okay. So Ryan, help me out. Is this a union or is this an intersection? You got a 50-50 shot. It's a union. There you go. Got a union. Remember, if your absolute value is greater than, it's going to be a union. So take a look at number 2. Your absolute value is already isolated, but it's what? Less than. If your absolute value is less than, it's an intersection. Okay. Now, once you're ready to go ahead and set up your 2 inequalities, this is where KISS comes in. First, I'm going to keep it. All I'm going to do is drop the bars. So either x plus 6 is greater than 7, or, there's my keep it, I'm going to switch, switch. Okay. Remember, what 2 items was I switching? Switching the inequality. So this x plus 6 is now what? Is now less than negative 7. There you go. KISS. Keep it, switch, switch. Okay. Carlos, what was that? You were air juggling. I want to know. Yes, I'm familiar. Okay. 6. All right. So let's go ahead and solve this one. Okay. Oh. think they'd practice some of these before they do them.
Anna Pritchard, Annabelle Wilms, Harris Underwood, Rocco Martinez, Mike Lawson, Cynthia Gonzalez, Lucy Foley Johnson, Monica Carino, David Correa, Emily Alexander, Yates, Chloe Valdez, Remy Sharif,
Oh, okay. All right, so now let's go ahead and solve these. So if I subtract 6, x is greater than what? 1. Or if I subtract 6 this time, negative 7 minus 6, x is less than negative 13. Now, it has not come up yet, but what happens if you multiply or divide an inequality with a negative? The symbol switches, so that is still possible. Okay, well, let's see. X is greater than 1. Well, here's 1 right here. Open or closed? Why? Doesn't have equality. And we're greater than to the right. Okay, now let's find negative 13. So negative 13 will be over here at the far end. It also will have an open circle. And I would shade right there. Okay. All right. All I got left is to write the interval notation. Okay, but how many shaded parts do I have? 2. So how many intervals should I have? Should have 2. Brianna, can you give me one of those? Give me this first one right here. Like, how far left does it go? It don't stop. So what do we call that in mathematics? What kind of infinity? Negative. So we're going to go ahead and say negative infinity to, how far does this one go? It goes to negative 13, parentheses or bracket. Why? Because it's not closed, it's open. There we go. So this right here, this represents that. Okay. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the other one. Okay. So let's see. Joseph, help me out with this one. What's the interval notation for that other part? For this second one right here. Okay. Uh-huh. 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 Okay. So there we go. So this one right here, that shaded region, is going to be represented by this. And what do I do if I have more than one interval? We take the union. There you go. That's all there is to it. Absolute value inequalities, KISS method. All right. Really makes you want to rock and roll all night, party every day. That's KISS. Just want to make sure. All right. So I'll tell you what. Let's go ahead. We will do one more. Okay. Then we'll go ahead and call it quits. Okay. Now tomorrow when we come in, we'll probably go ahead and do another one of these just to make sure we remember it because we're about to go for a 3-day weekend. We'll take our quiz. We're done. We'll finish this up on Tuesday. Now remember what's happening on Thursday. You got your big exam. So it's going to cover the review material, absolute value equations. Will absolute value inequalities be on there? Yes. Okay. So this is definitely stuff you can go ahead and start to look at. Great. Test is, well, you have a quiz tomorrow, but the full test is next Thursday. Okay. Yes, ma'am. This will not be on the quiz tomorrow. Tomorrow is only absolute value equations. Okay, good question. Was that going to be yours? Okay. So let's go ahead and do number 2, and then we'll have a little bit of time just to kind of kick back. Okay. So I've got the absolute value of 2v minus 3 is less than 19. Okay. Well, there's nothing for me to move around, so I'm already set to create my 2 inequalities. Keep it. What's the first one going to look like? 2v minus 3 is less than 19. And switch. What am I switching? Okay. So what's my next inequality? 2v minus 3 is now greater than negative 19. Okay. Now, you folks walk me through this. How would I solve the first one? Okay, so that would be 2v is now less than 19 plus 3? 21. And now what? Okay, so what would v be less than? Oh, wait a minute. I was just saying if you were paying attention, and obviously you were. Okay. Sometimes I like to use clever teaching strategies like that, just to make sure that you folks are still on your toes. Okay. So now, what is v less than? 11. Okay. And, but this time when I add 3, what's a negative 19 plus 3? Okay. So 2v is greater than negative 16. So we got a negative, so that symbol's going to switch, right? When does it switch? Multiply or divide by negative. So this is going to give me that v is greater than what? Negative 8. Okay. Now remember, with an intersection, they're going in opposite directions. You want the overlap. Okay. So let's see. I'm going to go ahead and find 11. So 11 would be right here. Okay. Open or closed? Why open? There's no bar. So I'm going to put an open circle here. I'm going to shade below. Okay. The other one we need is a negative 8. Luckily, that's already here. It too will have an open circle, but I'm going to shade that above. So my final shading region, Miley. All right, that was not what I was going to see, but okay, go ahead. Okay, so who can help me out with this? My shading should be from what to what? From negative 8 to 11. Okay, and you'll notice I've got one region, so how many intervals do I have? What would it be? Parentheses or bracket? Parentheses. Negative 8, comma, 11. Parentheses. That's it. Those are absolute value inequalities. Is any of this coming back from Algebra 1? What's up? Yes. Okay. And don't forget the badge. Okay. All right. So I did say if we got through one more problem, we were going to go ahead and stop today. Keep going. What? Oh, someone said it. Don't let peer pressure affect you. All right. We will stop. Okay.